Diesel engines are in the main super reliable. They go on to fantastically high mileages compared to their petrol or gasoline counterparts. Now, we really want to know how we can give our car the best opportunity of getting up to these big mileages. And we've addressed some of the driver habits in another video that can shorten the lifespan of your diesel engine. In this video, we're going to be looking at 11 areas that we should be paying attention to when it comes to maintenance and care of our diesel engine. If you're particularly interested in keeping your diesel as reliable as possible, this is definitely the video for you. And please let me know if you do these things already, or whether it was something that has maybe opened your eyes and you're going to adjust your maintenance routine because of it. When you check the oil on a diesel engine, you will notice it is generally black. It gets very dirty. The way the diesel engine works, there's a lot more soot and gunk and muck that is deposited in the oil. Manufacturers have specified very specific additive packages for diesel oil to protect the engine, to prevent sludge buildup, to prevent it from causing other problems. Now, one of the most essential things that we can do to maintain the reliability and long-term lifespan of our diesel engine is to change the oil frequently. If the manufacturer says it needs changing every 12,000 miles, it would be a good idea to shorten that to say 9,000 miles. And it is essential to use the right spec of oil. If we use the wrong spec of oil, we can be damaging the particulate filter as deposits start to form in that will not be burnt off by the particulate filter. Zinc is particularly one of the worst additives that we can have in oil that was used on older engines. It was a great engine protector, but now with particulate filters, it can become quite poisonous, effectively clogging up the particulate filter. So make sure that we use the correct oil when we do an oil change. Buy high quality fuel. Now, we're not talking about high cetane. Yes, it's cetane, not octane. We're talking about good quality fuel. A lot of towns will have a backwater filling station that is very rarely used. The fuel that they have has a high risk of becoming contaminated, and contaminated fuel will clog up the filter in our car. And also the premium brands will often have more or better additives than some of the budget brands. And we just need to be aware that the quality of the fuel that we use will have a bearing, particularly if we have a high performance diesel engine. The fuel system operates at extremely high pressures, and the injectors need to be kept particularly clean. We're going to mention additives later in this video. Part of the long-term maintenance and care that we can do is by choosing a good quality fuel with a decent additive package to protect the car's fuel system. The fuel filter in our diesel is quite an essential component. It's doing a lot of work. It's reducing moisture that gets out of the tank into our car's engine. It also traps particles coming through the fuel system and just prevents the injectors from getting clogged up. But those filters will clog up over time. And in some cases, people have needed to replace the fuel filter very regularly. And without doing that, they're getting hard start problems, cold start issues, and general flat spots or problems with power delivery. It's not just fuel that goes into the diesel engine that needs to be clean. The air that goes into the diesel engine also needs to be clean. And having a clogged filter is going to restrict the car's ability to breathe in. And with less oxygen available, you're going to be down on power. It's not going to be able to burn fuel as efficiently and effectively. So power is going to be overall reduced. And that's going to affect the efficiency of the engine. We're not going to be in that peak performance to economy power band that the manufacturer designed. The turbocharger in a diesel engine runs hot. The exhaust gases are going into one side. You need a flow of oil to keep it cool. Modern turbos have been designed very carefully, and often the oil and cooling circuits will still flow after the engine has been shut off. But it's always a good idea to allow the turbo to cool down a little after a period of spirited driving. It only takes 30 seconds or so, and we're not talking about sitting there with the car idling for 30 seconds. Just driving at lower RPM toward the end of our journey is enough. And most drivers will do that quite naturally. they tend to live in urban areas where the traffic speeds are lower. And just with an appropriate gear selection, if we have a manual, and the lower speeds that are involved, we will generally have had an opportunity for the turbocharger to cool down before we shut it off. If the engine starts to smoke on startup, or we're getting trouble starting it in winter, it could be the glow plugs. It's certainly a good idea to whip these out and test them if we suspect there might be a problem with the glow plugs, because that's a problem that just tends to escalate and become more expensive. And in some cases it's just one failing glow plug that's causing the problem, but we can make the car a lot easier to live with just by addressing that problem and viewing it as part of the maintenance schedule, rather than something we just address when it fails completely and we have desperate problems. Diesel additives generally either improve the cetane, they help the fuel to burn more effectively, so you can extract a little bit more performance from your engine if it's set up for it. But the key thing with additives is the cleaning, the diesel injector cleaning that goes on with these additives. And there's lots out there. Please let me know what your preferred diesel additive is. I would certainly recommend adding an additive to the tank every year or so. And if you do a lot of miles, maybe you even want to shorten that up. And that will actually help to keep the DPF, the particulate filter, in good order as well, if we choose an appropriate product. Now, the additives that we need to focus on are those that clean the injectors, and a lot of drivers will do this every couple of weeks, just adding a little bit to the fuel tank. And in my case, I found the BG range of products very effective. They made a significant difference on an old engine, and when I started using it regularly, it kept the injectors in very good order, and I didn't have the problems I had when I first got the car. But please let me know your experiences with BG products or other products. And there's various particulate filter regeneration products that allow the filters to burn off those soot particles at lower temperatures or more effectively, and they can help to reduce the need for frequent regenerations as we drive the car, making the car just easier to live with. Keep an eye on the cooling system. If the temperature has started to rise unexpectedly, that could well be a problem with the coolant. We might have a leak, the water pump may be failing, or some other component in the cooling system, even just a sticky thermostat, can be causing that problem. We don't want the engine to overheat. That is going to cause problems for us in the long term. And changing the coolant regularly will help to maintain the cooling system. And we need to be very careful to choose the right coolant. Some of these coolants can actually damage the components. Manufacturers have very specifically specified the packages that need to go into the coolant to preserve the life of the engine. Then it'd be foolish to ignore that and just go to the local parts supplier and buy a cheap generic brand that allegedly suits all cars. We really will get what we pay for. And if we buy cheap, we're certainly going to have other problems and more expensive bills to pay as problems start to mount up as a result of those poor decisions. Now, you're probably going to like this one. With a diesel engine, you need to drive it properly, drive it hard. When the engine has warmed up, kick it. Give it some beans, get the most out of the engine. All the components in the engine, the oil, the particulate filters, the turbocharger, will love this short period of spirited driving. It really will help to keep everything working effectively. If we just drive at low RPM all the time, we're going to be storing up a whole host of potential problems for ourselves. And the diesel engine really has quite a narrow power band, so why limit that further with this alleged eco driving that people do? Ignore those low RPM recommendations because they're not going to give you the best fuel economy. You need to learn where the power band is and drive accordingly within that power band, making the most of the engine. And I'll say it again, when the engine has warmed up, don't drive it hard on a cold engine. Another thing we need to do regularly is just check the OBD2 port for error codes. Just plug in our OBD2 reader. If we haven't got one, please get one. They're relatively cheap. Most of them will now interface with your mobile phone, and they cost somewhere between 50 and 120, depending on the complexity of the model that we choose. It can give us indications of the engine just not running properly, and it may just be down to a failed sensor or a clogged injector, or some other relay is not working correctly. And in a lot of cases, it's just a good idea to clear those error codes and see if they come back. Occasionally, you might get an error code that just fires up the once, and the car will log it and store it forever. practically forever. Don't worry too much. Reset them after we've made a note of what they are and see if they come back. And if they do, we need to really focus on that error code and try and diagnose what the possible cause of that error code can be. And that will prevent us having a breakdown or other problems further down the line. We shouldn't have any leaks from our engine. If the oil is leaking, coolant is leaking, or we've got fuel leaks, they're all problems that need to be addressed. And it's a really good idea just to regularly check the engine bay, the engine area underneath the car, and just make sure there are no unexpected leaks. And if there are, work out what the leak is and address the cause of that leak. Anything that is leaking out of the car is going to cause long-term problems. If the oil level gets too low, or the coolant level drops, or even if the fuel supply is interrupted somehow, and that can also be a serious fire risk, and we certainly don't want to have that problem on our hands. If I've missed anything out of this list, please let me know in the comments. I love hearing your comments and feedback, but I think we've covered the most significant areas of maintenance that diesel owners should keep an eye on. A lot of that will also apply to petrol engines or hybrid engines, but knowing that diesels work slightly differently and they have these particulate filters that are more prone to soot buildup, and they tend to burn less clean than their petrol or gasoline counterpart. It just requires that we focus our attention on these areas more specifically in some cases. So thanks for watching. Please boot the like button if you found this video useful. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. That really does help us out. And thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far. And I've lined up this video and this playlist for you that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in these next videos.